A small community where everyone drives the same car is rocked by the grisly murder of the most hated woman in town, and it's up to a checked-out, musical-loving Danny DeVito to clear the name of an even more checked-out Casey Affleck. We watched Drowning Mona today on...
Oh, Nelly!
What is this?
So I was thinking before, you know that trope in movies and TV where the disapproving father gets really mad and he like rips his shirt and he goes, "I have no son!" He yells.
He rips his shirt off?
Yeah, like Laurence Olivier from The Jazz Singer. He plays like the old Hasidic father, and he finds out Neil Diamond doesn't want to be a Hasidic Jew. He wants to be Neil Diamond, so he rips his shirt. He goes, "I have no son!"
Okay, what about it?
You remember that? I was just thinking how that's like a negative in every situation, unless it's a movie about a little transgender girl who has progressive but dramatic parents. I have no son! Yes, Father, you're getting it. You got it right away. You got it in one. I thought this conversation was going to go a lot worse, but it actually went really well. Thank you.
Are you workshopping material for a stand-up
This is what I'm doing.
Like, what the hell is this?
This is what we do here. We talk about movies, and I work my progressive stand-up. What's the deal with safe spaces?
The perfect venue for a comedy.
I love them! Welcome back, however you wish to self-identify, to The Fuck Is This, where we dive through DVD bins, sort through streaming apps to find the weird, the bizarre, and the unloved. I'm your host, Cass Lescard, and joining me always is my co-host, Jameson Rafter.
Hey, paisanos.
You want to finish that?
Welcome to the Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Fuck you, Luigi. How you doing? We're back. We're back in more ways than one. We're back recording episodes. We took a full month off to deal with the fallout of our lawsuit from Kim Sky over our episode on just another romantic wrestling comedy.
I mean, we decided that we were going to take a break before the paper started coming in. It took a little bit longer to come back from the hiatus, but...
I was a little worried for a while there. It looked like she maybe had us in a bind there, but luckily her lawyer turned out to be...
A Jewish stereotype?
Yeah, Jerry Shalom Weinstein or whatever his name was. Yes, it was the actor playing the character playing the lawyer.
You know what's funny? I watched that, not a screening, but like a watch party of that movie, and they had one of the wrestlers from, like the one who played the mom. She was like sort of a guest on that panel, and she was like, yeah, the production was kind of weird. I can't finish the fucking movie, but they kept us fed, and everyone was really nice on set, so...
Well, there you go. Then it was a success.
Yes.
Then it was good, and we're sorry, Kim Sky. Please drop the lawsuit.
Yeah. This is one of those situations where, like, oh, can you support the artist but not the art, you know?
Yeah, we're doing that. So, but we're back, and we took a month off, and we hung out, and lots of things have happened in the intervening months since we've recorded an episode. I have gone back to movie theaters. Now those are reopened. I've seen movies again. I've also had my first alcoholic beverages in over a year and a half, and we went to trivia, and we
joined
won.
Yes, you joined us at Bar Trivia, and it was good to have like that fourth wheel.
Hey man, you need a fourth wheel, otherwise the whole wagon falls over.
Absolutely, yeah. But you got to meet Virginia and Kate in person. That was quite nice.
I think I might have met Virginia before, just because I've often frequented karaoke around Vancouver. It's definitely my first time meeting Kate. Like a year after the fact, we sort of met. Over Zoom. I mean, she was there.
Yeah, she was.
She was there.
And not only that,
she was kind of there.
Yeah, but not only, like, this time she was present. Hi, Kate.
That's right. No, but we won. We trounced everyone at Bar Trivia, and I guess we have to go...
Defend our title
this Monday. So
absolutely, and pick up those gift cards that we were promised.
Fuck yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I touched my ass.
Exactly.
I don't remember why. There's more to that story, but you know what?
It's a heads or tails things, people. Like you're going for free shots. You have to put your head.
I went with tails.
For heads, you put your hands on your head. For tails, you put your hands on your ass, and then you flip a coin until it's like an elimination game. It's at the Moose in downtown Vancouver. Tell Ashley Jameson sent you. He'll spit in your drink.
Yeah, that's right. If you're one of the few people who are listening to that who are actually in Vancouver and fit that Venn diagram of people who actually listen to this show and are in town with us, yeah, come on down to the Moose. We'll hang out. We'll take your money. Who knows? I don't know.
Sign autographs. Sign babies.
Autographs. Yeah,
sign
exactly.
tits,
Yeah,
like...
we'll sign anything. If you have a pen, we'll fucking put our name on it.
Within reason.
I don't know about that. I'm pretty keen to just sign stuff. You know,
right.
Now that I'm back into the world and now that restrictions are a little lower now, I'm keen to.
It's a little more relaxed.
I'm
now.
keen to touch people if they let me.
This is why you invited me over.
No, I can touch you whenever I feel like it. I choose not to.
I see,
right
yeah.
now. But in addition to being back recording the podcast, we're also back in my basement for the first time in a while. I think this is the first time we've been back since we did that trailer episode where we were just watching all the trailers.
Yeah, because then we did that stint at Podstream, and then
the world stopped.
Yeah, and then we started doing our Zoom calls, and much has changed here. Like Kaz has done some badass renovations around here. Not that you didn't have a nice place before, but like...
No, I had a terrible place before. It's okay. No, you can say it
Your words.
No, it was a disaster. It was awful wall-to-wall carpeting. The paint was this faded terracotta and like puke yellow, and now it's like a nice cream color and everything. It's very like muted colors and everything. It's like I have an adult apartment. Of course, the renovations were like over 7 months ago, and now I've destroyed. I've destroyed the apartment now, and now everything's a lot grosser than it was before. But you, the audience, don't know that.
Theater of the mind.
Yes. No, but we took a month off. We hung out. We made some decisions about the future of this podcast, which we are only going to tease right now. We're not going to lay it out on the table right now, but we've definitely made some choices about the future of this podcast that we will probably start implementing in the early months of 2022. Jameson, of course, talked me down out of implementing this next month, which of course was a great decision based on the fact that sometimes it takes me a week and a half to edit one single episode. It probably was overreaching a little bit to assume
just a tad.
We could make the changes we want to change in 30 days.
Yeah, just like come out the gate like stumbling out of the gate.
so thanks for that.
Yeah,
yes.
So we're gonna do this right, because as Virginia mentioned, like you can like remarket once or rebrand once.
I have a feeling there are probably examples of things that have continued to rebrand until they're no longer relevant, but that's she took
marketing in school. So
oh, okay, well there we go. You could have led with that. Anyway, so we're kind of back to basic. We're just recording for the hell of it. We want to get back into Podstream at some point in time, but we're trying to make schedules work. Of course, it's a little tricky. We're still in the waning days of COVID, of course, and things aren't quite open up yet. We want to get back into Podstream, hopefully in the next couple of months. But in the meantime, we're here and we're gonna create some more content for you. And today we are creating content based around a little movie that we just kind of picked out of a hat. Jameson, you have a reason for watching this movie, but today's movie we're watching from the year 2000, Drowning Mona, directed by Nick Gomez, starring a cast. What a cast!
Yeah.
Jameson, the cast of this movie.
It's pretty fucking amazing. Danny DeVito, William Fichtner, Casey Affleck, Jamie Lee Curtis, Neve Campbell, and last but not least, Bette Midler.
Bette Midler as the eponymous Mona, indeed.
Exactly.
A couple of other people in that cast buried down the I really like this cast because it's a great cross-section of people who were famous at the time, who had their name above the title, the people that you've just mentioned. Then there were people who were sort of on the cusp of stardom. Like, this was a first very early role for Casey Affleck, his fifth build, but he didn't really have anything going on at the time. You know, this was before he started getting nominated for stuff.
It was after Good Will Hunting, though.
It was after Good Will Hunting, but he's not in that for very long, though. Yeah. It's more of just, before that, Casey Affleck kind of was just like the guy who showed up in his brother's movies and stuff. Like, he's in that. He's in Chasing Amy super briefly and everything.
He is?
I think his role is about as big as Matt Damon's role in Chasing Amy. It's a real blink and you miss it type thing. But yeah, there's some other people. Have you looked down the cast list? Because there are two people who are in this cast that you didn't mention. I'm wondering if you know that they're in here.
Well, I may have just forgotten it because I don't know if I told you this or not. I saw this movie in theaters when it came out.
Ooh, I've also seen this movie before, but I didn't see it in theaters. Yeah. I distinctly remember this was a home rental that I watched with my parents, and I don't remember much about it, but I do remember one or two jokes because there are I don't remember like a ton of all of the movies that I watched with my family growing up, but I have a really good memory for remembering things that my mom found funny.
Okay.
And I remember there was one joke in this movie that my mom found really funny, and for some reason that's the only thing I've ever really remembered about Drowning Mona.
I really remember the context of why I saw this movie.
Please tell me. Go into Context Corner, please.
So back in the year 2000, my cousin from Calgary moved out to the West Coast to attend UBC, and she lived with my family, which was awesome because she's awesome. But I think she was on a bit of a Bette Midler kick at that time. And she doesn't.
As we all go through.
Well, she doesn't really seem the type, really. So one day she just like rents the movie. What the hell is it called? Isn't She Great?
Isn't She Great?
Yeah, which has like Nathan Lane, John Cleese, David Hyde Pierce, and Bette Midler.
Yes.
And a lot of the jokes went over my head. I think it's like a very risque dark comedy.
I've never seen that movie, but that's definitely a trailer that I watched a bunch back then because again, that was a big cross section of actors that I was into in 2001.
Yeah.
Like a movie with Nathan Lane and John Cleese in it. I'm genuinely surprised that I haven't seen that.
Yeah, and then she saw the trailer for Drowning Mona, and she's like, "Oh, this looks hilarious! Like, let's go see it. Like, it's rated R, but like, I'm fucking 19 or whatever. I'll take it, Jameson." And not a laugh in the entire theater, except for one, except for one instance, and I'll point it out when it happens in the screening.
I wonder if it's the same joke. I think that would be funny if that turned out. Yeah, we don't normally cover movies that made it to movie theaters on this show. We do a lot of
straight to VHS, like straight to streaming. Yeah.
But this is a real sort of forgotten movie. A real.
Well, it was a box office bust.
Well, interestingly enough, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and I can actually bring this up here. I'll tell you the one thing that is nice about not doing these episodes over Zoom anymore is that I can actually look shit up on my phone, and I'm not guessing, because before I can only do Zoom on my phone, and I can't like access anything. I actually believe it wasn't a box office bust because it was made on a budget of $6 million, and it actually turned in a profit of $15.9 million.
Oh, okay.
So while it didn't,
I stand corrected.
It didn't like blow like the barn doors off or anything like that, but it made its money back.
Okay.
It didn't do amazing. It did debut number 4 at the box office behind. This is really embarrassing to find out what beat it at the box office. Was behind My Dog Skip, The Next Best Thing, and The Whole 9 Yards, which is maybe the only good movie out of that. But it is kind of funny. It's kind of embarrassing, all of those movies getting beaten by classic Frankie Muniz star the My Dog Skip.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Drowning Mona. So let's go into this a little bit here. This movie, of course, is directed by Nick Gomez. Now, the first thing I want to say about Nick Gomez, right now, Jameson, I am starting my first go-through of The Sopranos. I've decided I'm going to start watching that from the beginning. My plan, I've never seen that before, but I decided to start watching that largely to see if I can catch myself up before
the movie.
Yeah, the Sopranos prequel movie, Many Stands of Newark, which comes out in October. But I'm only 3 episodes in, and last night I was watching episode 3, and by sheer coincidence,
directed by Nick Gomez?
Directed by Nick Gomez, and it's the only episode of The Sopranos that he directed, so the odds of that being the next episode that I had to watch were kind of monumentally high. So
pretty serendipitous.
I thought that was a little serendipity right there, sprinkled into my evening watch. Yeah, that's good. But Nick Gomez, he's
interesting footnote on this director's career.
That's the first.
He directed a recent episode of The Sopranos I cast saw.
That's just, I don't know. I thought that was a lovely little coinky-dink. But yeah, no, he's a real journeyman TV director. And in addition to The Sopranos, he's also directed episodes of Homicide, Oz, The Shield, Veronica Mars, Dexter, True Blood, House, Daredevil, Titans, Supergirl. So, a good career. The guy's doing good. So Drowning Mona is the 4th and to date final theatrical movie that he's directed. He directed 3 movies before that. They're all crime thrillers that have kind of like faded from memory over time. If you hear that, that's my cat using the litter box. I'm unsure if I'll keep this part in here or not, but these are the joys of recording at home here.
Exactly.
I'm just going to continue to let it go.
Just a reminder to I should really get on the horn with Joel and see like what the situation with Podstream is, because it doesn't smell like cat shit in there.
We could stop. We could stop, record past it. But you know what? I'm choosing to power on throughout and just remind you
because we're raw like that.
Yeah, exactly. We're the rawest podcast on the internet. That's right. All right, so Nick Gomez's film career as it relates to feature films. In 1992, he directed the movie Laws of Gravity, which stars Edie Falco, who's apparently an old friend of his and probably helped him get that Sopranos job, I'm guessing. Laws of Gravity is about the lives of two incompetent young men from Brooklyn spin out of control after a friend returns from Florida with guns to sell. So, you know, that's a little indie.
Sounds like a documentary.
Yeah. His most acclaimed movie is 1995's New Jersey Drive, which was executive produced by Spike Lee. Jason and Midget are two young black teenagers living in Newark, New Jersey, the unofficial car theft capital of the world. Their favorite pastime is that of everybody in the neighborhood, stealing cars and joyriding. The trouble starts when they steal a police car and the cops launch a violent offensive that involves beating and even shooting suspects. Whoa! So that's how we know it's a fiction movie.
In New Jersey?
Cops shooting suspects in New Jersey? Cops shooting suspects at all?
Well, I never.
And then his third movie is a film called Ill Town, which stars Michael Rappaport, Lily Taylor, Kevin Corrigan, Tony Danza, Isaac Hayes. Wow. Ill Town, aided by a group of teens, a man and his girlfriend run a profitable drug operation, but someone is distributing bad smack in the area, and the cops start a crackdown. An additional way to say that last sentence is to say someone's distributing bad crack in the area, and the cops start a smackdown. Isn't that fun how you can sub out crack and smack in almost every situation, and it still makes a certain degree of sense?
I'm not convinced that just wasn't like a bout of dyslexia on your part.
It could be. It could be. You'll never know. You'll never know unless you go on IMDb and read the same.
Find for yourself, but like, let's be honest, listener, you're not going to do that.
No, you're not going to do that. No. Oh, I also do want to say New Jersey Drive won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance, so it had a little bit of acclaim at the time.
Get some clout, okay.
Despite the fact that no one really remembers it now.
Okay.
His most recent movie was a 2014 television film called Lizzie Borden Took an Axe, which stars Christina Ricci as the eponymous axe murderer and whatnot.
Cool.
Yeah. And everything I've read about that is that that's apparently fairly decent TV with a very distracting rock soundtrack that doesn't really mesh with the period. But anyway, Nick Gomez, he seems to be doing just fine. He's still directing TV. He's got a better career than I do. The film was written by Peter Steinfeld, who has written sequels such as Analyze That and Be Cool.
Oh.
He also wrote...
So like the disappointing sequels of decent movies.
Yes.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've seen Analyze This. And I've also never seen Analyze That, so I can't speak to the quality of either of those, frankly.
I remember, like, Be Cool's the one that has, like, that extended Aerosmith concert right in the smack dab in the middle of it. But it was also, like, The Rock's first major movie role, I think. Yeah.
Not as very... his first major movie role was the Scorpion King.
Right.
But that was... I did that...
But this was the one that could prove that, like, he could act.
I'll tell you what, I went to see Be Cool in the theaters, and the main reason I went to see it was because The Rock was in it, in not a dramatic role, because it was like a comedy, because he plays like a gay hitman in that. I'm all like, I want to see The Rock play a gay hitman. He's terrible. Also, the movie is bad. Be Cool is fucking awful. It does absolutely no one any fucking favors.
I think at one point he does punch Vince Vaughn in the face, and, you know, as a Canucks fan, I appreciated that, because he's like a fucking Chicago homeboy.
Oh, yeah. Also, Vince Vaughn, genuinely a terrible person to begin with. So anyway, we'll get off that.
Oh, good. My hatred is justified, and it's not just like some sports shit.
No, he's like not a terribly nice man.
Okay.
But I like movies. I like Vince Vaughn movies. Peter Steinfeld, he also wrote the movie 21, which is that movie about the real life thing about the kids who went, the MIT students who did like the poker thing.
Kevin Spacey. And
in addition to it starring Kevin Spacey, they also took a true story about Asian MIT students and they cast them all as white people, which proves that no one will watch that movie ever again.
I see.
And upcoming scripts from him, he also has the remake of Slapshot.
They're remaking that?
And he also has a screen credit on an upcoming movie called Legend of Cocaine Island, which I'm just going to tell you, I want to see it right now.
Yeah.
I want to see it right now.
We'll go up there opening night high as a kite.
Yes, but not on cocaine, ironically. No.
Yes.
I couldn't imagine going to see a movie in the movie theater on cocaine. Like, that would just be a very unpleasant situation.
You know, they just started allowing people to go back into movie theaters. Let's not push our luck.
Like, that reminds me of, like, one of the most uncomfortable movie experiences I ever had, where I went back a second time to watch Peter Jackson's King Kong, but I went with friends and we were on mushrooms, and I thought, like, this is going to be a great idea. That I forgot that there was an entire hour on the boat before they get to the island.
Yeah.
And then when they
takes
get...
them half an hour for the boat to, like, push away from the docks. Like, I fucking hated that movie.
We also left right around the time they fall into the pit and all the giant insects start eating them. That was too much. That was too much. That was a 3-hour movie. We barely made it in an hour, and we got to the worst part, and we're all like, this was a bad idea. This was maybe the worst idea that we've had.
A 4-hour epic on mushrooms? What the fuck are you thinking?
I don't know.
We weren't thinking.
We made bad decisions back in the day. All right, so, we're back to basics. We're back in the basement. We're watching it, and we're back to sort of our old way of doing things here. We haven't watched the movie yet, so we're going to actually take a break, and we're going to watch the movie, and we'll come back with our hot take on a film that we've actually already seen once before.
It's been, like, did we forget how to do this?
We're the loosest show on the internet.
God damn, it's only been like a month.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing, is, like, I took a month off from riding a bike, and they say you never forget riding a bike, and I got back on a bike after riding a bike, and I ended up with a bike up my ass.
Say bike one more time.
So, Drowning Mona. Drowning Mona, I love it. I just want to talk about, like, the four people above the title here, because it's two interesting pairings here. At first, you got DeVito and Midler, who had already been known in the public as classic co-stars from, of course, the comedy Ruthless People. You seen the Ruthless People?
No, I haven't. But...
Ruthless People, great comedy from the Zaz team behind Airplane and Top Secret. It was their first comedy.
But not like a straight up parody?
No, it's their first comedy that they did that wasn't a parody of like other genres. It was just a straight comedy. DeVito plays a money-grubbing son of a bitch, and Bette Midler is his wife that he doesn't really love anymore. And then the plot of that movie is Judge Reinhold and Helen Slater kidnap Bette Midler, and they hold her for ransom. But Dan DeVito doesn't pay the ransom, and then Bette Midler conspires with her kidnappers to get all of Danny DeVito's money. So it's a great 80s kind of shitty people comedy.
That sounds fun, yeah. I mean, like cards on the table, I don't know too much about, like, the career of Bette Midler. Like, my familiarity is, her cameo on The Simpsons, her cameo on Seinfeld. I was late to the party with Hocus Pocus. But I gotta say, like, from that end of the spectrum of, like, celebrity, I guess she has a reputation for being a bit of a diva, but she seems like she has, like, a good sense of humor about herself and playing these, like, over-the-top awful people, so... I think she's delightful and, like, rightfully, like, a national treasure.
Bette Midler, I know she comes from, like, the stage.
Yeah.
And she's, like a songstress.
Yeah.
And I know she's done some Broadway, but I'm not necessarily sure if, like, I feel like she's one of those interesting people. I always kind of, like, think of her career in parallel with, like, Streisand. Because Streisand kind of came out of nowhere, and I think she, like, cut a couple of records before she started acting in movies.
Yeah.
So she had that career of just being a singer, but in an era that's not like when you say like oh, she's a singer today, you think of someone like Olivia Rodrigo or something like that or anything like that. But there was a time when people just like cut records and did like concerts in like Broadway halls and everything.
Yeah.
Like that. But Bette Midler, she's a double Oscar nominee. Like her first movie was The Rose, which was kind of like sort of a Janis Joplin biopic in everything except the fact that she's not playing Janis Joplin. But
just that was a story arc on 30 Rock, I think.
Yeah, well,
they couldn't get the rights to Janis Joplin, so they called her like Janie Joplin or something like that.
Yeah.
Currently shooting a feature film inspired by, but for legal reasons not based on Janis Joplin.
Synonyms, just another word for the word you want to use.
That's basically what The Rose is, and then she does that, and then she goes back and forth between the stage and film roles. I mean, she was a big draw in the 80s. She was in Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Big Business with Lily Tomlin, Beaches, which is a huge movie that I've never seen, but it's got like I think like the soundtrack for that movie is quite popular. For the Boys, which is her second Oscar nomination, and then Hocus Pocus. Herself on Seinfeld. Oh, she's actually co-starred with DeVito twice because she has a cameo in Get Shorty. I don't think they share the screen together. Then First Wives Club. And then after Drowning Mona and Isn't She Great, things kind of evaporate for her. But she's also Bette Midler. She doesn't have anything to prove. Oh, forgive me. Of course, how could I forget she's the voice of Grandma in The Addams Family. That fucking animated movie. That movie fucking sucks so hard, man.
I know 2 people that worked on that.
Yeah, because it's the same team behind Sausage Party.
That's right.
Which was also made here.
Any notes you want me to pass on to them?
Make better movies.
Yeah, they're in charge of that.
Make movies that don't look like absolute garbage. This is the thing that, I mean, like, there's so many things that piss me off about that Addams Family movie. It's so blatantly clear that that's just like, whatever studio that is just has that license. Just shit something out. Everything from, like, the marketing to the animation style to the plot. Like, that's a short fucking movie. It barely has enough plot to hang its hat on. It ends abruptly. You're kind of like, oh, I guess we're done with this now. Almost no one is cast properly. You would think Oscar Isaac and Charlize Theron as Gomez and Morticia is, like, perfect fucking cast. Like, I would cast them as the live action version of those characters. They're weirdly checked out and, like, not really, like, doing much to it. And they've already crapped out a sequel that we're getting this year. And, like, they're so lazy. The character posters for the sequel are literally, like, the exact same poses from the first movie, but they've got them in, like, summer vacation clothes. Because I guess that's the sequel to that. But if you look at, like, the posters from the first movie and the posters for this, it's the exact same position. It's so lazy. They're such lazy fucking productions.
You hear that, Tegan? Step up your game.
I don't know. I'm sure you're lovely. But, you know, fix it. I don't know. Anyway, that's my hot take on that. Bette Midler.
The world needs to know.
Yeah. And yeah, so we got DeVito and Midler, and then the other interesting pairing, we got Neve Campbell and Jamie Lee Curtis, 2 Scream Queens.
Yes.
Meeting for the first time in different generations.
Yeah, that's an interesting pairing, actually, and I'm surprised that, like, it hasn't happened since then. Like now that, like, Jamie Lee Curtis has, like, been revived in, like, those new Halloween reboots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, fuck, like, are they gonna reboot Scream eventually? Did they reboot Scream?
Well, interesting that you should bring that up, because you can definitely look at these 2 careers, and you can definitely see how Neve Campbell's career is sort of parallel to Jamie Lee Curtis's in her Scream Queen title and whatnot. The fact that she's kind of gone away for a little bit. They have finished filming the 5th Scream movie, but following in the footsteps of Jamie Lee Curtis, who has made a recent sequel to Halloween that is technically Halloween 2, but it's just called Halloween, even though there was a Halloween 2.
Yeah,
it's called Halloween 2.
Let's not get into the Halloween sequel names. That's a whole rabbit hole.
They have made a 5th Scream movie, which is coming out. It's Arquette, Courtney Cox, David Arquette.
The gang's all back.
The gang's all back. But of course, what they have done is not called Scream 5. It is instead called Scream, which is a thing that I love when they do that. It's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing in the world. When franchises decide to just drop the numbers and just call the movie the thing that they've called it already. Yeah. I love it. It's so creative.
It makes searching for an IMDb so simple.
I love the fact that there are 5 Shaft movies and 3 of them are called Shaft. That's so fucking stupid. Campbell is a really interesting career. Let's run down Neve Campbell's career really quickly. Just quick. I think it's worth mentioning. So of course, her first her first role of note, of course, is a very memorable cameo that she made on Kids in the Hall. Memorable in the sense that Kids in the Hall didn't really do cameos. The 5 of them kind of played
they were in drag if they
every role.
Yeah.
But I remember her specifically that she's in a sketch. I believe it's Dave and Kevin who are playing like 2 soda jerks that are like creepy and leering after all of these high school girls, and they're being very obvious about it. And then the end of the sketch, 2 cops come in and they arrest Neve Campbell, who's in like a schoolgirl outfit, and they say, "We're arresting you for the murder of this guy." And she's like, "Yeah, I killed him. I killed him because he was a creepy old man and he was staring at me." And then it cuts over to Kevin and Dave. They're like, "Yeah," and everything. Yeah, so that was her first role. Then she's in a classic YTV sitcom Catwalk, which I never saw, but I remember the commercials for. They advertised that like crap on YTV.
I've never seen any of those fucking YTV sitcoms.
Speaking of YTV sitcoms, she was also on Are You Afraid of the Dark, which is, of course, a baton passing for all Canadian actors. You're either on an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps, unless you're Ryan Gosling and you're on both.
So she cut her teeth early on the horror genre.
Oh, yes, indeed. And then, of course, 1994 is Party of Five, and then 2 years after that, she has her big movie year with both The Craft and Scream. And then after that, 1997, Scream 2. 1998, Wild Things and 54. And then 1999 is where it starts going downhill. She does 3 to Tango, which was the movie's big attempt at getting 3 TV actors. It's like 1 TV actor. How about 3 TV actors? And that was her, Matthew Perry, and Dylan McDermott. And everyone was all like, yeah, none of these people need to have movie careers.
Keep them on the small screen where they can't do any damage.
And then 2000 is kind of the year where it all starts, unfortunately, wrapping up for her. 2000 is when Party of Five wraps. She does Drowning Mona. She does Scream 3. Even though they came back to Scream eventually, that was seen as sort of the end of that
closing
series.
Of the chapter, yeah.
Before everyone needed more money and they wanted to go back to that well. And then she's just in a whole series of movies that are just nothing films. Just
something she needs for a paycheck.
No cultural, things like Lost Junction, Blind Horizon, When Will I Be Loved? This is a maybe. She's in 2004 Churchill, The Hollywood Years, starring Christian Slater as a machine gun wielding, wife beater wearing Winston Churchill. We might have to
coming soon to what the fuck is this episode here?
We might need to find this. I don't know where we can find this. This looks interesting. Yeah, she's in a movie. She has a cameo in a movie I love, Reefer Madness, the movie musical. Which stars her brother in the main role. So I guess she has a little song. She's literally in that movie for 2 minutes. She sings a little song.
Sis, be in my movie.
I love that movie. You really gotta check that out. And then just a whole bunch of nothing until Scream 4 in 2011. And then a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, yeah, and of course she's in Skyscraper with The Rock. A bad movie, but I remember thinking she was really good in it. And I remember thinking it was really cool that they cast someone who was actually age appropriate to be Dwayne Johnson's wife. And they also established early on that she's also special forces military, so after spoilers for Skyscraper,
I'm not gonna see it.
After Dwayne Johnson rescues her and the kids from the skyscraper, she drops the kids off with the babysitter's okay, I'm also gonna go kick some ass because as previously been established, I'm also special forces, so I
and they're a couple.
Yeah, and that was my main takeaway from Skyscraper is all wow, Neve Campbell was kind of good in that, and then nothing again.
Okay.
Until
Kaz finds another name that jumps out at him on IMDb.
Until Scream. 2022 Scream. Why the fuck are they doing that?
Money.
I don't know. It is directed.
Creative bankruptcy.
It is directed by the 2 guys because, of course, R.I.P. Wes Craven. So this will be the first one not directed by him, but it is directed by the guys who made Ready or Not, which is a great horror movie from a couple of years back.
Okay.
Which is about the woman who marries into the rich family, and then on the wedding night, it turns out there's this pact with the devil that the rich family has made, and they have to chase the bride around and try and murder her before midnight, or otherwise this big thing happens. It's good.
Okay.
Ready or Not is good. I recommend that, and hopefully they don't fuck Scream 5 up. What do you mean fuck Scream? I mean those movies haven't been good since Scream 3, so it would be hard to fuck Scream up anymore. I will say the last thing I want to say about Scream 5, which is what
before we get into Drowning Mona.
At this point in time, I like Neve Campbell. I want her, to be in movies. I want her to have a movie career. Great Canadian actress, obviously. But if she's not killed in the opening 5 minutes of Scream 5, then
all is lost.
I just feel like that's what are we waiting for at this point? Someone has to die. Does
she want to keep coming back and doing these in 10 more years?
Well, probably. It seems to be the only movies that she makes of any note. But they keyed up such a perfect almost death for Courtney Cox in Scream 4, and then at the last minute it's no, all of them survive, and it's come on, you gotta kill one of these fuckers at this point. Come on, there's no stakes anymore at this point. So that's my hope for Scream 5. I hope they all die. I hope Arquette dies. I hope Cox dies, and I hope it's all new. And I hope the killer is revealed to be the killer from Scream the TV series, which is a TV show we all remember.
And as we know, you cannot kill David Arquette.
Excellent. And on that note, let's seg into watching Drowning Mona, directed by Nick Gomez. And when we come back, we'll tell you about how Mona drowned, and we'll tell you other things that happened in the movie. And maybe we'll run down the full careers of other actors, because why the fuck? Why the fuck not? This is what this podcast is now. Enjoy. It's just this. It's nothing but this now.
I wish I miss Zoom because I could mute you.
You can't.
No.
Much like you can't.
You cannot mute.
You cannot mute Cast Asgard. All right, we'll see you after the break, everybody. Bye.
During our time away from the show, Canada rightfully drew international ire with the discovery of the remains of 215 Indigenous children found buried beneath the residential school in Kamloops, British Columbia. This sparked a global attention to the history of barbaric and inhumane treatments of Indigenous families at the hands of the Church and the Canadian government, and demanded a need for action. And it reminds us all that the abuse, suffering, and robbing of identity of the victims of those schools spanned generations. As we've mentioned in other charity spots, residential schools are not bygone incidents from a different era. These disgusting events continued well through our very recent history, during our lifetimes. Calls to investigate other historically residential schools for their barbaric practices and just closings are absolutely necessary to provide closure to the still living sufferers and their relatives. And with these calls for justice, we must also state the calls for compassion. So with the surviving victims of these horrific facilities in mind, for today's charity spot, I'd like to spotlight the Indian Reservation School Survivors Society, a provincial organization with a 20-year history of providing services to the survivors of residential schools across Canada, with a board of directors staffed entirely by survivors of residential schools or descendants thereof. They strive to provide physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual growth, development, and healing through culturally based values and guiding principles for survivors, families, and communities. They provide crisis, grief, and trauma counseling, alternative healing therapies, traditional medicines, traditional food sourcing and preparation, and emotional support for people in the settlement process, and more. To make a donation to this very worthy cause, please visit their website at irsss.ca/donate. Once again, that is irsss.ca/donate.
And we're back. We're back from Drowning Mona, or as I'm going to call it, Better Camouflage.
Yes.
That was all. That was just a small town little murder mystery full of little podunk characters, but significantly better.
Done better, funnier. Yeah, it's funny that I recall like no one really laughing in this movie because there's a couple of decent chuckles in
There's
this.
a couple of decent chuckles, and then that's about it. Just because it's better than Camouflage, a famously terrible movie, famous from our podcast,
in our recent memory.
within our oeuvre, it is like a famously bad movie that we've done.
The two fans of the show will know that,
Yes.
that we do not like this.
Indeed. But, I mean, like, Drowning Mona is still, like, good. It's, like, good.
It's fine.
It's, like, good to okay, you know? It's,
Yeah.
like, a solid, like, C+ Saturday afternoon type movie.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, looking back, or, like, revisiting this, and from my perspective, like, going down memory lane, is that it is a quirky, twee, dark comedy.
Oh, twee as fuck.
Yeah, filled with, like, all these national treasures of actors, and it's never really developed any kind of cult following. Because, like, there's nothing really to, like, sink your teeth into, but it has all the material there to have, like, found new life as sort of like a cult classic.
Yeah, if you like the actors in this movie, and you're almost guaranteed to, because there's so many good ones, the only real reason to check this out, I feel like we're doing this backwards. This is like the recommendation. Hey, we gotta recommend this movie. All right, well, that was Drowning Mona, directed by Nick Gomez. No. Really the only reason to watch this movie is if you enjoy the casting, because the cast is all really good, with maybe like a few exceptions. Here's like the interesting observation I had about midway through. So this movie's marketed, the four above the title actors, DeVito, Midler, Curtis, and Campbell, they're the ones that they're selling the movie on. The movie's not really about any of those characters. The two main characters are kind of William Fichtner and Casey Affleck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, like, Casey Affleck wasn't really a name at the time, so it doesn't really make sense to put him forward, you know, like, above the title and everything.
Yeah, and William Fichtner is I don't know, he's a character actor, and he's popped up in, like, I think, like, people would most remember him as, like...
We are not going to run down his filmography, because
No.
we would be here for days. He has just been in too much.
Yeah.
He's just been in too many things.
He was, like, the bank manager in The Dark Knight, in the opening of The Dark Knight. He's in one of my favorite Nicolas Cage movies, Drive Angry, as, like, the Devil's Bounty Hunter.
Yeah.
He's great in that.
He's great. He's got great early roles in Heat.
Mm-hmm.
He was almost the Shredder
Yes.
before they realized that that's probably a bad idea.
Yeah, after all the backlash from 21, they said, like, no, let's cast an actual Asian person.
Then, yes, it was a direct correlation with the movie 21, Jameson. That was the
The
reason
Michael
that they
Bay Ninja
decided to
Turtles
do.
one, yeah.
And of course, the irony is you go and you watch that Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movie, and you watch what they made out of the edit, and you watch, and you're like, they should have just made William Fichtner the Shredder. That would have been a more interesting movie, and it would have
made a lot more sense.
It would have made a lot more sense given the bones of that. But we're not a podcast about Ninja Turtles. We're a podcast about drowning manga. So this movie starts off with Bette Midler as Mona Dearly, who gets into her car, gets into a Yugo. We'll discuss a little bit more about that. She immediately drives off a cliff in the opening credits of the movie, and it's sort of a hard-boiled little detective story. Not really, but Danny DeVito is the head cop who's investigating
the chief.
The chief, not the sheriff.
Not the sheriff, as they point out.
One character hilariously points out.
Don't move any closer, Sheriff. I swear to God I'll do this. No. He's not a sheriff.
Yeah, and he's just trying to solve the murder. And, of course, the hook of the movie is everyone is a suspect because Mona Dearly is maybe the worst person in the world. And everyone has a reason to see her dead.
Or at least be happy that she's dead, because she is just across the board awful person.
Yes.
Yeah, she is, I don't know, would you just call her white trash, or would you just call her, like, a very difficult person?
Well, I wouldn't call her white trash. I would call someone else white trash. Did you happen to catch what the Danny DeVito character's name is?
Wyatt something.
The full name of that character is Wyatt Rash.
Wyatt Rash.
Say it a little faster.
White rat. I see. White trash.
Yes. Funny.
Mm.
Funny screenplay from the writer of Analyze That.
Well, those are the two jokes around that character.
Yeah.
The other one being that he is a bit of a musical theater fan.
Let's talk about Danny DeVito in this. Danny DeVito, there's really only two things to say about Danny DeVito's performance in this. But A, his one defining character trait that he gets as a character is that he loves musicals.
Mm.
You kind of feel like that's going to be brought up a little bit more. It only comes up like a handful of times.
And he really has to work his way to, like, make the points. Like, we're going to be like the Von Trapp family. He starts off the movie, like, in his opening scene, he's, like, shit-talking Starlight Express.
Okay, let's circle back to this a little bit, because there's one thing. Yeah, in the opening things, he's on the phone with somebody, and he's talking about Starlight Express. That was when you mentioned, Jameson, that you've seen Starlight Express. How the hell did you manage to see Starlight Express? You've only seen like a handful of musicals by your own account.
Yeah.
How is Starlight Express one of them?
We went over this.
Did we?
Yeah, in our
Refresh
shock,
my memory.
in
I
our
don't
shock
remember.
treatment episodes.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Yeah, you asked, like, if I was a fan of musicals, and I was like, well, I've seen Starlight Express, so no.
You know. The other defining character trait with DeVito in this movie is that he is weirdly checked out.
Yeah.
This is one of the lowest energy performances I have ever seen DeVito give.
I think we're just so used to seeing him as, like, a very unscrupulous kind of character that when we see him play a cop who actually cares about solving this murder mystery, it kind of shocks us a little bit.
And I don't think he's necessarily bad in the role. He's definitely made a choice early on in this movie that it's like, I'm gonna play this very kind of subdued, you know. I'm like kind of like the one moral compass in this movie.
Yeah, the one competent cop on the force. Yeah.
He's just very soft spoken. It's just odd that he is the first billed star. He's also the producer of this movie, because that's the other thing. I love talking about DeVito's career. DeVito definitely, I would say, is one of my favorite actors. He's definitely one of my favorite movie stars. Just because I love the fact that there was a point in time where Danny DeVito was a huge movie star.
Yeah.
He opened big fucking budget Hollywood movies that he was the star of.
Yeah.
And he looks and sounds like Danny DeVito. That's wild. But he was a massive box office draw for so many years.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, of course, he also has this really interesting secondary career as a director and as a producer. He's produced lots of movies. He was one of the executive producers of Pulp Fiction, and he was instrumental in getting that movie made. His only Oscar nomination is for producing a movie. It's a weird one. You want to take a guess?
No.
All right. Weirdly, Danny DeVito's only Oscar nomination is for Aaron Brockovich.
Oh, yeah.
Like a movie you wouldn't associate with him. But he's produced, like, a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And then he's got, like, his little... He only made 6 films as a director, but it's an interesting filmography. It's Throw Mama from the Train.
Right.
Matilda.
Yep.
Duplex. He did the Jimmy Hoffa movie.
Okay.
With Jack Nicholson. War of the Roses, which was him and Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. And I feel like I'm forgetting one. But, Death to Smoochie. Which is his masterpiece.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. No, he's absolutely, like, Hollywood royalty. And, like, when you picture Hollywood royalty and you're thinking, like, you know, Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, George Clooney, right up there with them. Ought to be Danny DeVito.
It should
shoulder
be.
to shoulder, even though he's like, 5'1" or whatever.
It should be. And, the only thing that makes me sad that he's currently not the movie star that he currently is right now is that he went and he got himself a prime gig on one of the best TV shows that's currently running right now. So
he's the trash man.
He's the trash man. You gotta...
I eat garbage and I throw it into the ring.
That show's never bad. But yeah, so he's the producer of this, but he's made the distracting decision. It's just because everyone else is very big in this movie. And he's very low energy. Well, Casey Affleck.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's not the only one who's, like, not really trying in this.
I think we both agreed at one point. Casey Affleck, kind of bad. Kind of bad in this movie.
Yeah, and in this movie. And, like, for being, like, a principal character in this, and, figuring, like, this is my big break, like, stepping out of my brother's shadow.
Definitely one of his first leading role. If not a leading role, definitely, like,
the main role?
Yeah, the first time he had a movie where he was kind of one of the driving characters.
Has, like, probably the most screen time of any character.
I would say he's kind of fighting for being the lead character of this. And so it's kind of like him and DeVito kind of sharing... Yeah. The protagonist role in this a little bit.
Yeah, and they're really not sinking their teeth into it.
Yeah, they're both low energy, and then everyone else is just like
up to 11.
The big redneck stereotypes.
Yeah, redneck stereotypes, despite being like from a New Jersey town. Like there's a lot of like Southern charm. Like they all drink at the same honky tonk. Everyone's sort of like dressed in their checkered shirts. But no, this takes place in Verplank, New Jersey.
New York.
Sorry. Yeah. But they all sound like they're by way of New Jersey.
Well, it's kind of a similar type of accent. I'm sure all of our Jersey listeners are screaming at the microphone.
Fuck you! Now. That's what they're saying.
We're big in Jersey. We are the biggest Canadian podcast in New Jersey. I know that for a fact.
Fucking Plank, those mooks. Who the fuck do you think you are?
So, did we look up if that's a fake movie town or if that actually is a place? I'll look it up right now.
Well, so right at the start of this movie, there is there's a title card that just like gives you a brief little history on this universe that the screenwriters.
It is a town. It is absolutely a town. And going to this, I'm checking to see if the thing in the movie actually happened.
So they state that the Yugo or the makers of the Yugo car used that entire town as sort of like a testing facility, like an experiment. They gave everyone in town their own Yugos, and everyone pretty much drives the same car.
And I've just looked it up, and apparently this movie is somewhat based on a true story, because that actually did happen.
Really?
That actually is true. So I guess the screenwriter found out about that, and he definitely used that as a starting point for this screenplay.
This is quirky enough, enough concept that like there's probably a murder mystery in there somewhere. So yeah, they rule out it being like an accident. Like we see Bette Midler trying to like slam on the brakes, and then we try to figure out the whodunit. We can't really discuss like we can probably talk about the events as they arise, but
I mean, what we can do is we can discuss the characters, and then by proxy we'll have discussed the plot by accident, because really that's kind of what this is. It's just like, here's a bunch of characters, here's their whole deal, and then spoiler, the reveal of who the murderer is maybe the biggest red herring I've seen in a movie in quite some time.
It's a bit of a swerve and kind of a fuck you, but whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, Mona isn't alone in her horribleness, because her entire brood, you know, like the entire Dearly family are just, you know, the shittiest people in town.
Yeah.
She's married to William Fichtner, Phil Dearly, who's so good. Who's so good in this? I mean, he's never bad, but he's really good, and I'd say he's one of my favorite performances in this movie.
No, he's great. Like, he, like, in, like, the presence of Mona Dearly, he is, like, this spineless doormat to her.
Yeah, there's a great early scene that sort of shows the development of all the characters. There's a flashback scene where Mona Dearly is still alive, and she's demeaning Casey Affleck in front of his fiancée, Neve Campbell, and William Fichtner is kind of just being like a wet blanket in the corner, but and everyone's piling on him, everyone's insulting him, but then when, like, the shoe turns and everyone starts piling on Casey Affleck, he immediately kind of like
perks up a
little.
little.
Yeah, he perks up. He's all like, "Oh, I'm not the center of attention anymore."
Like, yeah, Casey Affleck, he's an asshole too.
Yeah, he's great. He's just at his scummy best in this. Yeah.
And we find out that he is having an illicit affair with Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Rona, and
the town waitress. She's like the Flo character.
Yeah, the sassy waitress, which is like a role that like Jamie Lee Curtis can do in her fucking sleep.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I'm surprised that she hasn't played like 10 sassy waitresses at this point.
She's great.
She fit right into that.
Yeah. And after Mona Dearly dies, Phil weirdly starts becoming way more malicious and manipulative to other people, to the point where, like, you gotta figure that, you know, Mona was keeping his dark side in check the whole time.
Or her dark spirit energy went into him after she ended up drowning.
Yeah, this is a supernatural horror story is what this is. Yeah. Also in her family is her only son, Jeff, who is just an awful person. Yeah.
He's played by a Belgian actor named Marcus Thomas, who just had no career after this. He was in like a handful of other movies, and then just like nothing happened to him. He never got on a TV show. He's really good, though.
You know, opportune word that you said, he had a handful.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, his main defining trait is that he lost one of his hands.
Yes. And we keep flashing back, and there's a lot of, like, unreliable narrator stuff going on in this movie. So we keep getting presented with different scenarios about how Jeff could have lost his hand. This always made me laugh, because they really saved some money getting the fake stub prosthetic. It's very clearly something that they just put over his regular hand, and they didn't bother to make his arm any shorter, so it just looked like he had one abnormally long arm.
Yeah, at least a good, like, 6 inches long, his arm.
If anything, it's a good thing that he lost that hand, because now he's normal size.
You know, like, I swear, like, if his depth perception were off whatsoever, like, he was gonna lose that hand eventually. Anyways, the world is not meant for, you know, some half man, half orangutan who have one arm just a little bit longer than the other. Sorry to any listener who may have that condition.
Pissing off our New Jersey listeners, we're pissing off our amputee listeners. That's a big cross-section.
Okay.
So Jeff's a big piece of redneck trash, and he's partners with Casey Affleck in the town landscaping business. Casey Affleck,
which I don't really get, because they don't seem like friends.
I guess
what is their relationship like?
The idea is
Casey Affleck should have fired his ass a long time ago.
I guess the idea is supposed to be is that they were friends at one point. It's a small town, right? So you only kind of have like the relationships that you have growing up.
Yeah.
They didn't do a great job. They didn't do a great job of explaining why these two continue to be together, because we're seeing the relationship at the tail end of things, and they've already broken apart, and they don't want to be in business together anymore. But Casey Affleck plays this real wet blanket who is engaged to Neve Campbell, who is the daughter of Danny DeVito.
Yep.
All of the connective tissue. His brother is the town bartender, who's played by character actor Mark Pellegrino, who played Jacob on Lost, and he's Dexter's evil brother. You've seen him in some shit, and that's basically every character.
Those are our principal characters, and the like, as Danny DeVito goes around questioning people, like, everyone has like their own recounting of the events. And, you know, they contradict the last thing that he heard. As you mentioned, like, everyone is an unreliable narrator. But like, you know, the town kind of like moves on very quickly after the death of Mona Dearly. Let's just fucking talk about, like, from the wake onwards.
Sure, yeah, definitely, yeah. So we mentioned that there were two sort of famos in this movie beforehand that we noticed were sort of like buried in the cast. So we go to Mona's wake, which is preceded over by funeral director Cubby, who is played by Will Ferrell.
Yeah, Will Ferrell's in this movie. I don't know what the fuck he was going for. Like, you want to play a funeral director, you gotta play it creepy. Will Ferrell, you know, you give him, like, just an ounce of material, he'll stretch that up to whatever.
He always goes a little extra.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He was in prime extra mode right here. They went out of their way to make him look really gross. They give him, like, a really nasty comb over. He's always sweaty. He looks pale and just, like, not good.
I swear, every time he's on screen, he doesn't blink once.
Yeah, that was definitely a choice he made.
Yeah. But what was his direction? Like, try to make everyone uncomfortable. You yourself are a very uncomfortable person. Yeah. Because, like, you've got, like, a hooker in the back and you're trying to, like, get everyone to rush and leave.
Well, he appears to be an amateur pornographer in addition to being the town funeral director,
sure.
I guess, and he's probably...
He runs the funeral home that's, like, as seen on TV.
Well, yeah, he's got the little as seen on TV. I mean, that's a classic trope of the creepy funeral director. It's interesting because, like, it's not like he wasn't known at this point in time. Like, he does SNL in 1995. By this point, he had been in both Austin Powers movies, and he had been in a bunch of SNL movies. He did Night of the Roxbury, he did Superstar. Same year this came out, he did The Ladies' Man. So, like, he was in stuff.
But he still was on SNL, so, like, like, his, like, movie career didn't, like, blow up until after he left. Like, this would have been probably as he was starting doing his George W. Bush impression on SNL. So, yeah, still, like, a beloved comic actor, kind of always relegated to SNL, but they wanted to give him some parts, because he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Really, Will Ferrell is fucking hilarious.
And this is the point, this is the point where this is how you slot Will Ferrell into your movie. You give him a memorable little scene-chewing thing that he can run with, and he does all right, I guess. Yeah.
So, Mona Dearly's wake is, like, very poorly attended. Only, like, 2 people ever show up at a time.
Oh, yeah, at a time. That's right.
At a time, yeah. You know, Phil and Jeff go pay their respects. Jeff's wearing his fucking Megadeth shirt with a blazer over top of to his, you know...
It's the nicest shirt he owned.
To his fucking mother's wake. Whatever, he probably doesn't own a suit. Yeah, people just, like, you know, show up to pay their respects, and then they all kind of wind up at Jamie Lee Curtis's diner to have a big old laugh at...
Well, the real wake. That's the real wake.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's kind of nice. Like, you can almost see, like, an entirely different indie movie that takes place just that evening in the restaurant that's, like, the real wake after the wake.
Yeah.
And the joke of the entire movie is that no one likes the person who's died.
Yeah.
You know, there's like, a smaller budget comedy kind of within this movie.
You could have had, like, a real anthology series with everyone kind of recounting, like, all the times that Mona Dearly has, like, affected their lives and ruined their lives.
It's the DMCU, the Drowning Mona Cinematic Universe.
Absolutely, yes it is. But, you know, Danny DeVito, he's not satisfied with the answers, and he's got to get to the bottom of, like, who killed Mona Dearly.
Yes, and you can tell by how concerned he looks on his face at all times, and how totally not checked out of this movie he is. Yeah.
So yeah, like, most of the like, the details are filled in, like, through these flashbacks, and that's where, like, you know, it's Bette Midler's time to shine, where she's, like, chewing people out over, like, the slightest misunderstandings.
Here's an observation that I had. I thought this was really interesting. So depending on who has the flashback and what their relationship with Mona was while she was still alive, things are colored a certain way. We get flashbacks from Jeff's perspective, and of course, Mona's terrible to him, and every time Casey Affleck has a flashback, Mona is horrifically abusive to him. There's, like, a minor disagreement over some pay, and she attacks his car with a golf club, and I mean, there's some interesting stuff where if Jeff is talking to Danny DeVito, he puts all of these incriminating words in Casey Affleck's mouth, and then we see the same scene later on, but now it's been flipped, and it turns out it was actually Bette Midler who said all that stuff.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting is there's one flashback that's from DeVito's perspective. And it comes, it's a flashback where there's the town knife throwing contest. I wrote it down. It was the Golden Angel knife throwing contest, and they have a statue and everything.
I mean, it was at a county fair. They had like other events going. It wasn't just like it's the annual knife throwing tournament that the whole town looks forward to. It's like
clearly
it's tourism season.
Clearly, it's one of the big deals of this town is this annual knife throwing competition, and we see it's DeVito and Fichtner are the judges, and we see Mona throwing her knives, but then they announce Casey Affleck is the winner, and it's the only time in the movie Mona ever gets a moment of, like, mild sympathy.
Yeah.
Because she starts going like, I've never been a winner, I wanted to win this, and she's being terrible, and she's saying terrible things. But what's kind of interesting is this is DeVito's flashback, and DeVito kind of has the most empathy of any character, so his is the only time we kind of see Mona as a person.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a lousy little contest, I know.
Everybody can't be a winner, Mona.
But I've never been a winner. I've never had my chance.
You're blowing this out of proportion. It's just a knife-throwing contest.
Yeah, to you maybe, but not to me. I really wanted this. Just for one day to be a winner, to have everybody look at me and say, yo, way to go, Mona. Would it have killed you to let me take home that prize, huh? Just for one day, to let me feel good about myself?
And you mentioned that in all the other flashbacks, you were certain that, like, they put Bette Midler in a fat suit. And in...
Well, I think that was meant to imply that was kind of like a little... That was like the
a little detail that everyone's
That
adding?
was the latest flashback. I think they tried to give the impression that Bette Midler, as she got worse, she got fatter.
Okay.
Which, of course, tracks, because as we all know, fat people are inhuman monsters and don't deserve any of your love or sympathy.
Interesting that you brought up, Danny DeVito having those empathetic moments in his flashback. In that flashback, if anyone else were to, like, recount that, they probably would have left out the detail where Casey Affleck offered the first place trophy to her. And should we get into spoiler territory now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
so Casey Affleck wanted to kill Jeff, and he like punctured the the brake fluid. So he punctured the brake fluid tank.
What he punctured was the Fetzer valve, which
yeah.
is not a real car part. That is a reference to the movie Fletch.
Oh.
Where he has a running gag where he's pretending to be not a running gag, but there's a gag where he's, like, bullshitting and he's pretending to be a mechanic, and he says, oh yeah, the Fetzer valve's off and everything. It's all like, yeah, that is, I only remember that because I watched Fletch earlier this year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, like, he wanted to kill Jeff, but, like, he never went through with it or something?
Well, no, he thought he did, but he's dumb,
Yeah.
and he punctured the one part of the car that didn't do
it.
anything.
Right.
But then Fichtner sees him, and then he cuts the brakes.
Yes, yeah, so he could implicate Casey Affleck. So,
it's about midway through the movie.
Yeah, so, like, Danny DeVito, once, like, the suspicions start piling up against Casey Affleck, he's seen for himself that Casey Affleck is a nice kid, and he wouldn't actually want any harm given to people, even though he did try to kill his business partner.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
There goes fuck that theory of mine. I was wrong. Totally off.
I remember this. This is the part that I remember from watching this movie all those years ago on VHS with my parents. Is I do remember this reveal that Casey Affleck thinks he's the villain. I didn't remember the additional twist at the end that kind of, like, ends up clearing his name.
Yeah, so William Fichtner, like, tracks Casey Affleck down at the bar. He says, like, hey, you did me a real good favor, kid. And then, like, Casey Affleck goes to have a nap in the park, has all these, like, flashback nightmares of all the times that Bette Midler was mean to him.
Yes,
and
he has flashbacks to the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. And then he wakes up and confesses to Neve Campbell that he...
Who finds him in the middle of a field.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, what the fuck happened? Oh, yeah, their keys were swapped. So she...
Yes, that's a real screenplay fucking contrivance that this family, who obviously love each other so much, all have personalized keychains.
Mm-hmm.
Mom, Dad, and Jeff.
Well, they all drive the same car. I'm surprised like every fucking key didn't work on every Yugo. That's why they all have like their monogram license plate.
Yes.
So like people in this town who all drive the same fucking car could recognize it.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a sly little joke because everyone has to have personalized license plates because you wouldn't be able to tell if someone was speeding.
Yeah.
It's a brown Yugo. God damn it! I need to know more. I need to know more information.
With the owner of a brown Yugo. But like, yeah, that's how she dies. Like the murder victim was meant to be Jeff, but William Fichtner like goes the extra mile, cuts the brakes, swaps Mona's keys with Jeff's, and Bob's your uncle. There you go.
So William Fichtner kills Mona.
Yes.
And he frames Casey Affleck for it.
Yes.
And then plot goes on. We find out that William Fichtner and Jamie Lee Curtis have been shacking up, and then it's kind of very casually revealed that she's also been sleeping with the son.
Are they?
And then there's like a Wheel of Fortune.
I was gonna say, are they sleeping together, or are they just playing Wheel of Fortune?
We gotta talk about this.
Yeah.
This is one of the weird Chekhov's guns that this movie has. Is a Wheel of Fortune board game.
So the day after Mona Dealer is pronounced or found dead, William Fichtner goes to his usual meetup place with Jamie Lee Curtis, like just some shitty motel, and on the bed is the board game Wheel of Fortune, or the board game version of Wheel of Fortune, which we don't.
Classic board game Wheel of Fortune. Everyone remembers playing.
But we don't know why. It's just always involved in.
Look, I guessed early on there was going to be a weird sex thing, and then that's what it turned out to be a weird sex thing. It wasn't. It was actually, you know what? It could have been weirder. Frankly, that was kind of a disappointment. It wasn't weird enough.
And it's a weird. I don't want to kink shame, but like it also seems like, what do you have to do to like? How does it work?
I don't know. That's great. The rest of this podcast will be us breaking down how Wheel of Fortune works as a sex game.
Jamie Lee Curtis goes on this rant like you wanted to buy a vowel, so I let you buy a vowel, and then you wanted to have the trip to Acapulco, so I let you get the trip to Acapulco, and like I just want the O.
I think she says like you wanted to buy a vowel, so I gave you an O, which is funny, which is a clever line. But the most we see is she just holds like the spinning wheel board in between her legs, which William Fichtner does with his tongue, which is gross. And that's it. That's the extent of the Wheel of Fortune.
I mean, it must drive the women crazy because, like, he even did that with Bette Midler. You know, they have that confrontation in the kitchen where she's whapping him with a frying pan going, "You're playing Wheel of Fortune with someone else, aren't you?"
I'll give it this. It's a lot more sexier than Hollywood Squares. Playing that in bed. Like, you know, you never want to be with your partner getting down for sexy time and then you have to ask Paul Lynde a question. Like, it doesn't work. It's a real mood killer.
I thought you were going to go with the Bruce Valanche joke. And
that is true. I went classic squares. I went the squares that I didn't see. Yes. I suppose, yes. Although, not modern Hollywood squares, but the Hollywood squares of our era, I could have easily made a making whoopee joke. Hey! You slap it!
Right,
I hope you caught that over the thing. That was me forcing Jameson to slap some five.
Very reluctant high five. It's so good to be back. So good to be back in the same room with you. What the fuck happens then? Phil dies.
There's a second murder. Yes. William Fichtner unfortunately exits the movie. We see the setup with Jamie Lee and the son in coitus together, and then they look up and Fichtner is standing outside, obviously drunk, and then it cuts to the next morning, and poor Phil is waterlogged and bobbing in the river, much like his wife died. Two drowning deaths, and now we got two murders we got to solve.
Yep. Two dearly departed.
Wow. I'm going to retroactively take my high five back. There we go. That wasn't even your joke. That was the screenwriter's joke.
Yeah, well, the white rash. I'm
going to double check to make sure that that's actually not the tagline of the movie. I'm going to look at the poster
Two
right now.
dearly's departed.
The death of Mona Dearly wasn't so much a whodunit as a who didn't.
Oh.
All right. Okay. So yeah, not the dearly departed thing that I was hoping for. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens then?
So Danny DeVito, like, he questions Casey Affleck once, like, you know, some evidence is coming to light that it could have been him. He asks, like, so where were you, like, the night of the incident? And he says, oh, I was at my brother's bar. But then Danny DeVito runs into a regular who was fixing her tire.
Yeah, this is a weird character.
Yeah, it's. I mean, her name was Valerie.
We actually missed this joke. We were like talking, and then we looked back. She's like a rival landscaper who got punched out.
Yes.
And it's like a weird throwaway joke, but the punchline, no pun intended, was hitting a woman.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. I didn't quite understand what that was all about, largely because we weren't paying attention.
Yeah, but the crux of that is that she would not have been punched in the face had Casey Affleck been at the bar to intervene, I guess.
Because he's such a good guy. As we all know, Casey Affleck, famous champion of women.
Yeah, I was...
That guy has never done anything, but women love Casey. There's nothing, never done anything wrong with that guy.
What an ally. But yeah, so she confirms that he wasn't at the bar that night.
Well, I mean, this kind of like jumps around to like the end of the thing. What happened we talked about? Well, we haven't mentioned that Neve Campbell is pregnant.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I want to talk about this. This is a trope. So there's a scene early on where they're at the cafe. DeVito and Campbell are having breakfast, and Jamie Lee Curtis is serving them. And Neve Campbell is eating a pickle with ketchup. Yeah. And they haven't ordered yet because when Jamie Lee Curtis comes, she takes their order. So that implies that she asked for a pickle.
Or she brought one.
Or she brought it with her. Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at it, I'm all like, okay, this is the end of the meal. It's all like, no. So she had to specifically ask that. But as soon as you see her putting ketchup on the pickle, you're like, oh, she's pregnant. Now...
I didn't think that. I thought, she's weird.
You didn't think that?
No.
Okay. There is 100% a trope around...
Weird cravings.
Weird cravings. It's always pickles. Have you noticed that? It's always pickles.
You know, I heard that. I guess I just never made that connection. I wasn't using my detective brain to figure out, like, that early in the movie that she was... That's our tell that she was pregnant.
I mean, the movie's called Drowning Mona, so I'm already on the case. Before we even hit play, I'm already on the case. I'm trying to solve...
2 steps ahead of
I'm
everybody
trying
else.
to solve this thing, man.
Before Danny DeVito does.
I gotta get there. Yeah, but that's definitely a trope. It's definitely like you get weird cravings when you're pregnant, and it's always pickles and something else.
Yeah.
Like, that's in, like, a ton of cartoons. Like, and I'm just like, what was the first thing to use that? Or is that a proven thing? Do pregnant women crave pickles and, like, chocolate sauce and other, like, weird combinations and shit?
I'm gonna have to ask my mom.
Go ahead, ask your... we'll wait. We'll all wait. Call your mom. This is a podcast exclusive. Jameson's mom... are we doing this? Okay.
It's ringing.
Okay.
Ma, it's your boy. Yeah. No, I'm fine. Thanks. Yeah. No, I'm with Kaz. Hey, listen. Quick question. When you were pregnant with myself or my sisters, any weird food cravings? Okay, thanks. I didn't call her.
Oh, okay. Wow, and I thought I was the actor. I was captivated. It's amazing.
And scene.
You even managed to make your phone do, like, the little, like, buzzing thing. Like, I couldn't hear your mom's voice, but I could still hear, like... It's amazing. Like, I thought your mom had, like, that peanut syndrome, when she was just like... I mean, I don't know. I've never heard your mom's voice before. I'm sure she's a lovely lady. So, what happens here? So, yeah, I guess we can kind of, like, jump to the end here. So... everyone thinks Affleck killed Fichtner. Everyone also thinks that Affleck killed Mona. But we're kind of given like
everyone, including Casey Affleck.
Yeah, Casey Affleck is under the... Well, he knows he didn't kill Fichtner. He would have remembered if he murdered another person.
Yeah.
But he's under the assumption that everyone's going to blame him for Fichtner's death. But in a weird left field turn in like the last 10 minutes of the movie, it's revealed that lovable town peeper, I guess... Eccentric, who what's his character's name? Clarence, who's played by character actor Tracy Walter, Bob the Goon himself. One of the few people in this movie to have his own action figure. Yeah, no, it turns out that he was just kind of like chilling when Phil falls in the water, and instead of helping him out, he just goes and he just casually drowns him. Why?
Because the night that William Fichtner catches
I remember
Casey Affleck, trying to puncture the what'd you call it, the Fletch valve,
the Fetzer valve,
whatever.
Yeah.
So he just happened to be there.
Because he's the peeper. Because he's peeping.
Yeah.
That's his one role in this town, is to just peep.
Yeah, so he knew that, I guess he knew that wasn't Mona's car or something, so...
He knows a lot. His character conveniently knows the plot of this movie.
Yep. He was there when Mona's car drove into the river. He was there when Casey Affleck confessed to Neve Campbell that he tried to kill Jeff, and he was there the night Phil drowned. Or no,
because he drowned him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he drowned him because he doesn't want Casey Affleck to go to jail because he's such a nice guy. Good guy, Casey Affleck.
The two nicest people in town, which I don't really believe, they're just not the fucking Dearlys. I'm sure there's plenty of nice people in that town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, poor Neve Campbell isn't really given much to do in this, unfortunately. It's kind of, I mean, like, she's given, like, a little bit. It's given that she's kind of maybe a little of a bridezilla. There is kind of a funny joke early on where they're talking about the menu for the wedding, and they've ordered, like, bone-in chicken, and she wants all the chicken to be boneless, which leads to a very funny line where Affleck goes to his brother and says, "Come on, can't you do a brotherly deboning?" Which I guess his brother, the bartender, was also catering the wedding. I don't know. They don't really go into that very much.
They mentioned that, like, he's...
I would think Jamie Lee Curtis would be the caterer, wouldn't she? She's, like, the only restaurant-based person we meet, so...
You're gonna inconvenience family that way. Yeah, but, like, yeah, they keep mentioning that, like, Casey Affleck has money problems because, you know, Jeff keeps costing them jobs.
Because he ran over a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't truly find out, like... the time frame when Jeff lost the hand. We do find out the real reason that he lost his hand is the most mundane explanation of all was he tried to steal a sip out of Mona's beer and she chops his hand off with a meat cleaver.
Which should have landed her in prison.
Yeah, probably. There should have been some long-standing repercussions for that. I mean, she ended up dead, so there is that as well.
There is that one scene where the three cops are like sitting around in the diner.
We love watching these movies with these wacky cops. God damn it, every time.
We enter the scene while they're having like a discussion over, like just razzing Jeff for his missing hand. You know, like, what was the fucking lead up to that conversation? We're just in time for them to be like, "Hey, want me to give you a hand, Jeff?" Yeah, that kind of shit. I mean,
it's implied that Jeff was costing Casey Affleck money even before he lost the hand. I have to imagine they're losing a significant amount of money when you're a two-person landscaping team and only one person is ambidextrous.
Yeah.
I imagine there's not much that he can do after the fact.
Yeah.
But it's also implied that he was just as lazy before he lost the hand as well.
And a bit of a creep, because in his intro scene, he seems to be macking on a 12-year-old.
That's right. That never comes back. That's just a creepy moment.
That's super creepy.
That was a very young girl.
Yeah, that is. Ugh.
But it never comes back.
That should have been grounds.
And he's backing on, even though he has a perfectly fine Jamie Lee Curtis right there.
Like, that should be grounds for termination in itself.
The whole family should have been wiped out. Yeah, Jeff weirdly kind of gets like a bit of a happy ending. Like he kind of ends up with Jamie Lee, I guess. It's not really resolved because the movie just kind of ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not much of a resolution. Tracy Walter admits to Danny DeVito that he killed William Fichtner. Jeff tries to shoot himself in the head, but DeVito tackles him. And then...
The gun goes off after he tackles him, and that was... I was going to bring up the only time that the people in the movie theater laughed.
Yeah.
After the gun goes off in the cemetery, the two dumb cops, like just the nameless extra kind of guys, they're the ones who book it. They're the ones who... And it's like, cowardly cops. That's pretty good. But like in a movie that has like a couple of witty, funny lines, that's what got like a reaction out of the audience. Yeah, there was a couple of funnier moments than that in this movie. Yeah.
I remember the one point in the movie that I remembered my mom laughing at, and weirdly it actually didn't play all that well in the movie this time around, is Casey Affleck admits to Neve Campbell that he's the one that killed Mona, and she freaks out at him and she storms off, and he goes, "Where are you going?" She goes, "Home!" He's like, "We need milk." It's kind of funny.
That's kind of cute.
It's maybe the best moment Casey Affleck has.
Yeah. I mean, there's like this cute little moment where there's an establishing shot of the diner, and like a Yugo is like going reverse uphill, but no one's driving.
Yeah, we're not really. There's lots of kind of like weird sight gags that aren't terribly explained. Jamie Lee Curtis carries a guitar case at one point that has "hot buttered ass" written on the outside of it.
Yeah.
No explanation needed there. She never even plays a guitar.
In her opening scene where she's like waiting in the motel room, she's got a lit cigarette and she busts out another cigarette and lights with the cigarette she's already smoking.
It's not, because almost every time she smokes a cigarette, it's like almost done.
Yeah.
Like she always has like a cigarette in her mouth, but it's almost like 2 puffs away from being finished.
Yeah.
It's a good little piece of set dressing here. Yeah, I think that's the entire plot. Is there anything else we wanted to mention? Melissa McCarthy's in this movie for a hot second.
Yeah, she like Will Ferrell just so happens to be at that same motel getting his freak on with Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah.
You know, future national treasure in her own right.
And then she has one other scene with Jamie Lee Curtis a little later on where she shows that good comic timing. But yeah, just kind of like a tiny little throwaway character. Melissa McCarthy is one of those actors, like, when she came out, you either knew her from Gilmore Girls or you knew her from Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
But she's one of those actors where if you go into her filmography, she's in a lot more movies that you probably don't remember that Melissa McCarthy's in. She's in Go. She's in Charlie's Angels.
Oh, yeah.
She's in White Oleander, The Life of David Gale. She, of course, is the voice of Dee and Amy on Kim Possible. Yeah, she was just in like a bunch of random stuff.
No, I love those.
Before she got to Bridesmaids. Okay,
yeah,
great.
No, she's wonderful.
Great lady.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up in this movie, great fucking soundtrack. If you are a fan of Three Dog Night or any other like Southern rock, like this is the movie for you.
I think my favorite moment is the first two songs we hear.
There were Three Dog Night songs in this movie.
Good soundtrack, yeah. More Three Dog Night than a fucking Rob Zombie soundtrack. The first song we hear is Shambhala, and then the second song we hear is In the Summertime by Mungo Jerry, which dovetails nicely into the introduction of William Fichtner's character, who resembles Mungo Jerry. He's got the white boy fro and the deep fucking sideburns.
Yeah, in the summertime, and there he is.
There's a music critic that I love to watch on YouTube called Todd in the Shadows. And he did he does a series called One Hit Wonderland. And on his episode of In the Summertime, he said something about In the Summertime that I love. He was talking about it, and he says, like, this sounds like the first song ever written. Like, it just does. Like he was talking about like when this song came out, like within like the time frame of the 70s. I was shocked to find out this song came out when it did.
Yeah.
It sounds like literally the first song someone ever wrote.
Well, it's a good thing that you credited him in that description, because that's stealing somebody else's.
It is. That's why I credited him.
Good for you, man.
More people need to check out Todd in the Shadows. I love that guy.
No, great fucking Southern rock soundtrack in this, with the notable exception of the song Popcorn.
We need a little bit of energy here. It's just, I don't know.
You can't play fucking Freebird if you need some energy in like a chase sequence, or...
Well, no, that would just be blatantly copying every track on the Devil's Rejects soundtrack if you throw Freebird in there.
Fair enough.
That would be distracting if they put because it happens after Neve Campbell finds out William Fichtner is dead. Why would you play Freebird at that moment?
Because the rest of the entire movie has had like Southern rock to it.
But you put Freebird at the end of a movie. You don't put it in like the middle of the movie.
It's
an album closer.
I mean, maybe the intro part of the song. I'm talking about like the part in Freebird. You know, like the 7-minute outro.
Did I ever tell you I bought Guitar Hero 2 for the PlayStation 2 back in the day just because I was playing it at a friend's house and I only wanted to master Freebird? That was the main... I didn't want to... I barely played anything else in the game. I just played Freebird over and over again until I got... until I got 100% on medium, and then I stopped.
You know who was amazing at Guitar Hero? Friend of the show, Scott Murray. I went...
That surprises me not one bit.
We went to like this... Guitar Hero competition a couple of years ago, and it was like for Rock Band 3, which was like sort of like considered among the purists to be one that was like, you know, not very, you know, appropriate to the band, because they had like power-ups and shit like that. So whatever the hardest song in that game is, like probably that Dragon Force
Through
song,
the Fire and the Flames.
Yeah. So it was he and another guy who were the final match between these guys. And Scott smokes him in like probably like the first like minute and a half, and then the guy was like, "Oh well, that's just because like we didn't have like power ups and everything. This guy's like, you know, too technically good. Like you throw in like some, you know, some items or shit in there, like I'll kick his ass."
Oh, much like how I play Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
You're saying. All right.
So they ran the match back, and what Scott did was, because he is so technically good at the game, he was stacking the power ups until like it got to a point where like, okay, I got enough that I can just, you know, toss them one after the other.
That's a classic move.
It was awesome to see live.
That's a classic move.
Yeah.
He won that fair and square.
Absolutely,
that
he
is
did.
a strategy.
He could beat him clean, and he can beat him on like the other guy's terms. I've never been prouder of my friend, and he's married with a child.
His greatest accomplishment.
Yeah.
He just like opens like he has like a photo album that says like precious memories. It's like his wedding, the birth of his daughter, and then him holding the Guitar Hero trophy over his head.
Yeah, it's a bigger picture. Like
yes, the trophy picture comes before the kid.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Jameson, did you enjoy Drowning Mona? Would you recommend it to other people?
You know, now that I revisited it, I think I would. I mean, it's a damn shame that we kind of spoiled the mystery for people.
But that's what we do on this show.
That's what we've done for like...
That's what we've done for every episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
Spoil movies.
I would give it a shot. I think there's some great performances in this. I think there's some wit to it. It's funnier than I remembered it being. I'm just surprised that it's... well, maybe I'm not surprised that it didn't become like a cult classic. Because like there's really not one essential look to it.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a cult movie here.
Yeah.
There's no real reason to revisit this.
No, but it's a fine movie. It's a good Sunday afternoon watch.
If I had seen this in theaters like you had back in 2000, I would have left and I would have felt that was fine. That was a decent way to kill a couple of hours, and it remains that. And it's an interesting curio for just collecting this collection of actors all together. I think it's a really interesting mix of people at different points in their careers, and it's always fun to see where people start off.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jameson, what are you into right now? What do you recommend people check out?
Oh, geez. Like I've been just watching a shit ton of stuff on Crave TV and Netflix. I finally got around to watching Chernobyl, which I thought was quite good.
I am still one episode away from finishing that, and I have zero desire to go back.
Really? It's a little too depressing?
It's great. It's just the most depressing thing I've ever watched in my life. Do you remember when that came out, the main selling point of that was all like, you still paid for HBO even though Game of Thrones is over. Why not check out Chernobyl? That's how they were selling that. It's all like, please don't cancel HBO. Look, Chernobyl. It's all like it's the natural next step for fans of that show.
Most people feeling pretty down and out by like the finale of Game of Thrones are like, well, this will perk you up.
It's okay. It's only the most depressing television show has ever been made.
How about yourself? What are you into these days?
I really want to recommend. I've been really getting into Jeff Rosenstock.
Okay.
He is kind of like this singer-songwriter. He kind of makes like really high energy, like punk type albums. He's got a solo career. He's also attributed to a couple of other bands. But I've really been getting into his music. It's just really high energy, shouting, swearing, anti-establishment, punk rock. It's really great.
Right
so
on.
I recommend his most recent albums, Post, and then No Dream, which is an album that came out last year and showed up on a lot of places' best albums of 2020 lists. This year, he actually remade No Dream as a ska album called Ska Dream. It's weirdly great.
Okay.
It's maybe like the best argument for ska that has been made in the past little while.
Okay.
So yeah, listen to Jeff Rosenstock. I really enjoy him. I also really like the new Modest Mouse album, The Golden Casket. And then movie-wise, last night I watched Nobody, which is the Bob Odenkirk action movie from...
Oh, yeah,
It's basically what if John Wick were Bob Odenkirk.
Okay, yeah.
It's so badass. It's just so badass. It's very much the same. It's basically John Wick meets like Crank meets like Breaking Bad.
Jesus.
A little bit of Home Alone sprinkled in there. Christopher Lloyd plays his dad, and I'd forgotten the visceral squee of glee I get literally every time Christopher Lloyd shows up in a movie these days, because he does movies so infrequently. It's so nice to see him in this in something good. And yeah, and the final action scene is the Russian mob versus Bob Odenkirk, Christopher Lloyd, and RZA. And I'm just watching them all like, this is everything I've ever wanted to see in a movie. This is fucking awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah, so check that out. And on that note, that was Drowning starring Mona, directed by Nick Gomez. If you like this show, please follow us on Instagram at the F Is This Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at TK_is this. I think that's correct.
Not understore, but underscore.
Understore?
Yeah.
It's the understore.
Yeah.
It's where you go to get, your
it's the speakeasy.
It's your underclothes, yeah.
Mm.
That's the shop in the video game Undertale. It's the understore. What else do we have? Facebook. We're on Facebook, and we're on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify, watch it on YouTube, and if you're watching it on YouTube, listen to us on Spotify, and also on our YouTube page. Throughout this past month, Jameson has been releasing episodes of our previous podcast, our Jack Bauer Power Hour. So if you want to see where our beginnings, our origins, we've got a few episodes of that.
They are not doing well. no one's tuning in on them.
Yeah, because it's a completely different show that we've released within our show.
Yeah.
So whatever, it's fun.
It's fun, yeah. It's something to pad the run, or the pad to make the wait for the next.
You haven't posted the ones with Harrison yet, right?
I posted one with Harrison.
Listen to those, but those are good.
Those are great.
Harrison usually can dig us out of the ditch that we dig ourselves into. Much like that.
He is our Mo.
He is our Mo indeed, yes. You got a catchphrase to send us out on this one?
Yeah, sure. Do the brotherly deboning.
It's not awkward at all. All right, good night, everybody.